Hello you, welcome back again. I hope you're having a great day today. So we are going to explore on this glorious day the difference between sensation and intuition, how to truly define them, right? So my aim is to find a unified definition that would not contradict either of the three main systems. So it's really finding the commonalities so that we know for sure what we know about sensation and intuition and how to differentiate them. And so in this video, I will explore Jung's definition, the originator, right, of the whole theory. I'm going to explore also MBTI's definition, then Socionics definition, and then at the end, I'll do the unified definition. If ever you don't like to watch really long videos, that is totally fine. I'll put little chapters so you can go to the definition that you want to see, because if you have ADHD like me, you lack a bit of patience, and that is fine. And also, last thing, I also am compiling a Google Doc with all the unified definitions. If you want to check that out, it's in the description box. So let's start. This is going to be long, but I'm really excited because we're getting to the meat of things, right? Intuition and sensation, and also the next video that's going to be thinking and feeling. You really start to truly differentiate people. I think that introversion, extroversion is a bit more subtle, and I also think that being rational or irrational is also a bit more subtle, but not here. We're getting to the meat, right? The foundation of the makeup of temperaments by Kersey. So in a way, this is quite exciting. Okay, so let's start with Jung. All right, we're going to start with our wonderful Carl Jung and how he differentiated sensation and intuition based on his book, Psychological Types. So we'll start with sensation. Here is a definition of sensation. So sensing, it's a perceptual psychological function. It focuses on immediate, concrete data in experience. So it involves an awareness of the physical world through the senses, right? And it's always rooted in what is actually present in the now rather than what is imagined, inferred, or abstract. So sensing would be, she has long, brownish blonde hair and she is wearing polka dots and I hear her voice, right? That would be sensing. Am I so good? Yes, I am. Sensing concerns itself with what is rather than what could be. It registers facts, details, textures, forms, and sensory impressions. And it's going to do that either in the outer world as they appear objectively or in the inner world as they are subjectively experienced, right? Extroverted sensing, introverted sensing. So the key features of sensing in a general non-attitudinal definition is that it is grounded in a present reality and the here and now, what can be seen, touched, heard, smelled, or tasted. It's concrete over abstract, right? It favors what's tangible and what's real over what's speculative or hypothetical. It is direct perception, so it relies on immediate experience rather than interpretation, inference, or symbolic meaning. And it is impression based, so sensing registers impressions as they are, so vivid and rich and full of form. It's also emotionally neutral, so it doesn't judge or interpret, right? It's a perceiving function, and judgment will come later, if at all, through other functions like feeling or thinking. It is vital and instinctive, so it's connected to life, to survival, and to the body's connection to the world. And it is nonverbal. Sensation often precedes language. It's a raw input before it's processed into thought or emotion. So in essence, sensing is the function that brings us into direct contact with reality through what is actual, experienced, and immediate, be it physical, emotional, or psychological. And it gives us the raw data of life. So there you go, that's sensation. Let's go now to Jung's definition of intuition, again in a general non-attitudinal way. So Jung said that intuition is, again, a psychological function of unconscious perception. It's already different. It perceives meanings, connections, patterns, and possibilities that are simply not accessible through direct sense perception. It operates autonomously, often outside our conscious control, bringing insight into what could be, what will be, or what lies behind or beneath what is seen. So whereas sensation perceives reality as it is, right, intuition perceives potential and becoming. The core traits of intuition. It's an unconscious perception, right? So it perceives without knowing how, and it extracts meaning from minimal or hidden cues. It's possibility focused, so it's not concerned with what is, but either what could become. It opens closed rooms and it searches for a way out. It's active and creative, so like sensation, it's not passive. It shapes and creates meaning in the act of perceiving. It's pattern seeking, so it discerns relationships, tendencies, dynamics between things, often before any logical connection is made. It's future oriented, especially when dominant. Intuition is oriented toward the future or emerging development, so it perceives where things are going. And it's symbolic and non-literal, so it works through images, impressions, or archetypes rather than facts or physical things. People are moving, my neighbors are moving, and I want to kill them right now for doing this now here in front of my window, but that is life. So we're going to continue. Yes, it's symbolic and non-literal, right? So it works through images, impressions, or archetypes more than facts or physical sensations. It bypasses logic and detail. It's detached from immediate reality, so it can appear disconnected from physical reality or pragmatic concerns. And it's visionary and anticipatory. So in Jung's summary, intuition is perception via the unconscious. It brings forth images not produced by the senses, either in the outer world or from the psychic well. So it perceives the invisible, not in the mystical sense alone, but the very real sense of grasping the shape of things not yet manifested. All right, so that was sensation and intuition, and throughout the definitions you could see the comparisons. So I think it's a pretty clear image. Now I'm gonna press pause because my neighbors are making loud noises. Okay, I'll continue because I have to, so let's go. Okay, so now we're going to move to MBTI real quick, and that's from their official website, what sensing is and what intuition is. So they represent the perceiving mental processes for taking in information, and they're opposite ways to see things. So that's interesting, and it is true. Jung also demonstrated that. So people who prefer sensing, they tend to focus on facts and specifics. They remember details that are important to them. They take a realistic and pragmatic approach to life. They focus on the here and now, on present and past realities. They like step-by-step instructions and information presented sequentially, so in sequence. They understand ideas through practical applications, and they trust experience. So keywords here will be concrete, realistic, present, practical, experiential, traditional. Traditional, I don't know. Jung didn't say traditional, but it would make sense. And then an MBTI, people who prefer intuition, they tend to seek out new ideas, look at the big picture, take an imaginative approach to life. But that feels more any, but whatever. Focus on future possibilities, patterns, and meanings, like an overall framework that they can work out themselves. And focus on concepts, not practical applications. And trust inspiration. So keywords would be abstract, imaginative, future, conceptual, theoretical, and original. Is the definition bad? No, but I think that if you only rely on this, you won't go really far. So to me, MBTI is just a subpar system, honestly. But anyway, we've seen Jung, we've seen MBTI, and now we're going to go to a really great system, which is Socionics. So here is the Socionics definition of sensation and intuition. We'll get there. 9 minutes 30. Okay. I'll do one after the other. Again, I think that you're intelligent enough to... It's better if we create a complete picture of sensation and then a complete picture of intuition. I think it's clearer. So in Socionics, here are sensor types, meaning sensation dominant people. Their general orientation is that they live through the senses. See, hear, touch, taste, and feel deeply. They have a strong connection to the physical self and bodily needs, and their life is experienced in the present moment, day to day. Their time perception is oriented to the now, not the future. The future feels unpredictable or vague, and they're not abstract thinkers. They rely more on willpower and realism. That's beautiful. Behavior and expression. They are confident in their own body, so their movements, their level of attraction, their presence. They also seek physical realization of desires, so attraction, success, comfort. They want to make it manifest in the world. They initiate action and relationships. When extroverted, they're overactive and they may complicate their own life. And when introverted, they are reserved, cautious, and afraid to overdo things. In emotions and relationships, they're jealous and protective due to judging by experience. I don't get that, but there you go. They expect their partner to be consistent and dependable. They take initiative in emotional and sexual matters, and they need control in those realms. And in practical life, they have good self-care. They defend their material and physical needs. They trust their bodily sensations to judge their own health, and they use time and energy very carefully. So they're tacticians, right? Now, how do I manage? Not visionaries. I'll see this in the future, right? So that's sensation types. Now we're going to move to Socionics' definition of intuitive types, or intuition dominant people. And it's going to be the same little paragraphs. So for their general orientation, they live in the abstract. Ideas, patterns, meanings, possibilities. Yes, they're disconnected from physical reality and bodily sensations. So they're sort of detached. They often feel their own body is uncertain or unreal unless it is reflected by others. Maybe someone saying, you're beautiful or not. Time perception, they're oriented to the future, strategy, and abstract potential. They often lack concrete planning, right? Instead, they see possibilities. And they're strategists. How may I get there? Not tacticians. How to deal with it now. In behavior and expression, they don't initiate in relationships. They want others to act. They wait for others to act. Now here it almost feels like introversion, which I find particular. Intuitives also doubt their physical attractiveness, so they need external validation for that. Their attraction is psychological, so they need to feel real or material through another. And they're often socially passive, cautious, and afraid of submission. Isn't that? It feels a bit introverted. So in Socionics, it said perhaps certain intuitives, you will mistake them for introverts, but they're actually displaying behavior that is about intuition. Then in emotions and relationships, they benefit from being desired rather than desiring themselves. They may avoid sexual initiative unless clearly matched or guided. They're drawn into others' rhythm easily. They're sensitive to imbalances. And they're not naturally jealous, but they do appreciate subtle signs of being wanted. And then, in practical life, they will struggle with self-care, and they will wait for others to care for them, right? Their focus is not on their body. So they know a lot about aesthetics, but they don't trust their own taste, which I find interesting, right? They're just mistrustful of their sensation function. That's what it's saying, right? Without sensoric influence from the outside world, they may become disordered in home and body care. And they rely on external authority, so they rely on doctors, for example, over their own sensations to guide and judge their level of health, right? So this is a clear explanation. It's not just here is present. Intuitives are good with patterns and meaning, but they're also adding, they also distrust their sensation function, a bit like what we saw with sensors who didn't trust the future, right? So there's this idea that not only are you good with a certain function, you also mistrust the function that is weakest. I think that's really, really interesting. So there you go. Those were the three main definitions, and honestly, it aligns fairly well. I would say that Socionics adds this definition of certain things being weak. So what does it feel like when sensation is weak? What does it feel like when intuition is weak? But it's still, I would say, generally very similar. So let's do this wonderful synthesized definition that aligns with all three for sure. So sensing, intuition, there are two distinct ways the mind perceives reality. And that's true. We are in the perception realm here. We're not trying to judge anything. So sensing perceives the present and the tangible, right? So everything that's visible, that's sensing. You could point at anything here and describe it, and you would be using your sensation. It attends to what is directly available to the senses. So facts, details, textures, and concrete data. Sensing is grounded, practical, and concerned with what is real, reliable, and actual. Now it can be real, right? It can be real. See, I'm an intuitive. Now it is real. That's so funny. Anyway, either in the external world, which is SE, or through remembered impressions and bodily awareness, which is SI. Now, remembered, that would be some sort of MBTI thing, okay? Neither Jung nor Socionics said anything about like the past, because the past is invisible a little bit, but at the same time, yes, they'll have a good memory for experiential events, because they'll remember they were paying attention to sensation back then, so they can have clearer memories. It favors clarity, realism, and immediate engagement with the environment. Whereas intuition, it perceives the emergent and the abstract. It grasps what is not immediately seen, so patterns and symbols, hidden connections, and the possibilities in our world. Intuition is imaginative, future-oriented, and speculative, like what if, it could be this, it could be that, and it focuses on meanings that are beneath the surface, either as spontaneous, like external insights, seeing things in the external world with NE, or as internal visions and archetypal impressions with NI. It bypasses concrete details, goes over that, in favor of understanding how things could evolve or could connect between each other. So both functions are non-judgmental in themselves. They are simply gathering information. They're not judging or making really, they could make decisions, right? Like I'll touch this, which is a decision, but it's not like big logical or ethical decisions, because we are in the perceiving realm once again. So sensing does that, gathering the information through direct experience, and intuition does that through unconscious insight. So you could say that it's how we gather, but also what type of information we trust, right? So if we're sensor, we'll mistrust intuition, and the opposite. And sensing, trust what is present, physical, proven. Intuition, trust what is emerging, symbolic, and possible. There you go. I think this is really clear. Honestly, it's really fun, because it feels sometimes so difficult to actually know, like, what is intuition? And you can see here, it's not about knowing the future. That is really important. I'll do a little chapter here. If you have seen throughout all definitions, there is nothing about intuitives guessing the future, okay? They are simply representing what's happening in abstract ways, and yes, they can see the possibilities and what might emerge and what will be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're psychic and able to know all the time for sure what the future holds, all right? That is being mystical and having witch powers. Here we're talking about human perception. Also, from all of this, I can confidently say the other two, introversion and extroversion and rational, irrational, I still don't know. But this one, I can confidently say that I am intuitive. There's absolutely no doubt. So that removes all the ST typings that I've had, all the typings of ST. And one day, probably after the dichotomies, I will tell you all of my conclusions, but I will also support it with like proof and arguments so that you may see why I come to these conclusions. So that's it. We've done the beautiful exploration. Now you know for sure what intuition and sensation is. It can help you in typing yourself, but also typing other people. That's the aim. I really hope you enjoy this. Leave a comment if you did. Leave a comment if you have like any thoughts or whatever else. I really like reading comments, and I'll respond. I always reply, because there are not a lot of people watching, which is totally normal. So it makes it private, and I like it. And I'll see you in 2 weeks for thinking and feeling, which is also going to be exciting. And next week, I'm actually posting the sun archetype, or the king archetype, warrior archetype, ruler archetype, in my astrology archetypal series. So yes, that is it. Thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it. And I can't wait for us to find our true type. Have a great day. Bye.